They said no one but family is allowed in the house. On a scorching hot day, I went to visit my married daughter, only to find her emerging from a storage shed in her in-laws' yard, looking terribly thin. Inside, I saw a thin mattress on the floor. Can you believe it? They were making her sleep in a shed where the temperature soared above 105 degrees Fahrenheit. How dare they treat my daughter this way? I'll never forgive them. After hearing everything, I was livid. I took her away, and we disappeared. As a result, her in-laws turned pale and ended up shaking like leaves. My name is Nancy. I'm 60 years old and work as a clerk at a local company. I was widowed when I was young and raised my daughter, Sophia, single-handedly. We faced many challenges, but we always overcame them together. Sophia grew into a patient, kind, and wonderful woman. When she landed a job at a big company after college, we celebrated together. Sophia got married and moved out. I wonder how Sophia's doing. Surely, she's being treated well in her new family. I suddenly remembered the day when both families met before the wedding. Sophia's partner was Pete, a nationally renowned professional golfer. I was surprised that she was bringing such a famous person, but they had met at a golf event. Pete looked me straight in the eye and said, "Mother-in-law, I promise to protect Sophia for life once we're married. I want to walk through this life with her." When I looked at my daughter, she had a determined expression and said, "I want to marry him too," so I happily agreed to the marriage. Pete's parents seemed nice, and his father said, "When they're married, they'll live with us, but we'll take good care of your daughter." I was confident I could entrust my precious daughter to them. So Sophia married into Pete's family, about a 3-hour drive from where I lived. For a while after Sophia got married, she would reply quickly if I sent a "How are you" message. But about a month after she moved, her replies gradually stopped coming. Worried, I checked Pete's official social media and saw them attending occasional events and parties together, looking like a happy couple. Seeing my daughter's smiling face in the photos reassured me. I tried to think that no news was good news. One summer day, more than 6 months after Sophia had married, I called her cell phone. But all I got was a message saying, "This number is no longer in service." Come to think of it, she hadn't replied to my messages for a while either. Is she really okay? What if something's happened to her? Once I started thinking like that, I couldn't sit still. I got in my car and drove to her in-laws' house, desperate to see her. I parked near the house and rang the doorbell. But no one came out, maybe they weren't home. It was a scorching day, with temperatures over 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Wiping away my sweat, I pressed the intercom button again. Then I heard a sound from the garden. Thinking it might be one of the family members, I hurried around to the garden. "Ha! Sophia!" There was my daughter, crawling out of a storage shed in the garden. "Mom!" Sophia's eyes widened in surprise when she saw me. Her face was much thinner than when I'd last seen her 6 months ago. She looked so different I almost didn't recognize her. Sophia seemed dizzy and stumbled. As I rushed to support her, I caught sight of the inside of the shed. What's this? What's going on? Inside the small shed was a thin mattress. There were water bottles and clothes around, suggesting someone was living there. I glanced at the thermometer on the wall. It read over 105 degrees Fahrenheit. Don't tell me you're sleeping here. Why? My daughter's eyes filled with tears. They told me no one but family is allowed in the house. Then she covered her face with her hands and burst into tears. I quickly led her to the shade and offered her a cold drink. What on earth happened? Tell me everything. As I encouraged her, Sophia began to speak between sobs. Right after we got married, the family told me to quit my job. I refused at first, but then my in-laws started saying harsh things to me. Sophia explained that she was forced to quit her job, and when she refused, the mistreatment began. They said if I didn't obey, they wouldn't accept me as a daughter-in-law, she said. Even though she quit her job with a heavy heart, things only escalated. After a month of marriage, my father-in-law finally ordered me, "You're not family, so you can't enter the house." Live in the shed. My daughter wasn't allowed to eat meals with the family and wasn't given much food. They wouldn't let her use the bath, so she had to wash herself with the garden hose. Her once glossy hair was now damaged beyond repair. My mother-in-law says I'm only allowed in the house to do chores, she continued. I have to do all the housework under their supervision. I'm like a servant. Oh, honey. Doesn't Pete stand up for you? Sophia shook her head. He always pretends not to see. He ignores me when I try to talk to him. But when there are events or parties, I'm taken out and told to pretend we're a happy couple. What Sophia was telling me was too horrible to believe, but the exhausted state of my daughter in front of me and the condition of the storage shed told me it was all true. Why did you go along with what they said? You should have run away sooner. Sophia started trembling and crying. Because father-in-law threatened that he could take away your job anytime. My job? Yes. Father-in-law said he knows someone important at your workplace. He said he could have you fired anytime. I couldn't let you lose the job you've had for years because of me. Oh, my poor girl. She had endured this hell thinking of me. And Pete. After listening to everything my daughter had to say, I finally lost it. How dare they treat my daughter like this? I'll never, ever forgive them. I put my hands on my daughter's shoulders and looked her straight in the eye. We're getting out of this house right now. Come on, let's go. And just like that, I put my daughter in the car and left her in-laws' house. We disappeared from their sight. To prevent them from coming to our house, I decided to let my daughter rest at a hotel. It's been so long since I slept in a bed, she mumbled sadly before falling into an exhausted sleep. As I watched her, I began preparing my revenge on them. That night, I got a call from Pete. When I ignored it, his parents started calling too. But I didn't answer any of them. According to the neighbors, the three of them were making a fuss in front of our empty house the day after I took my daughter away. I still didn't answer their calls. 3 days later, I finally decided to answer Pete's call. "You finally picked up. You took Sophia, didn't you?" Pete yelled at me from the moment I answered. There wasn't a trace of the kind demeanor he'd shown before. I maintained a firm attitude and replied, "Yes, I did. Bring Sophia back right now. I need to take her to a charity event today." He was irritably demanding, but I ignored that and questioned him about how they had treated my daughter at their house. He snorted. "That's her fault for not getting along with my parents. Even so, making her sleep in a scorching hot shed is going too far. At least she had a roof over her head, right? Anyway, bring that servant back as soon as possible. My parents are angry too." I ignored Pete's ranting and hung up. A few hours later, I was at the venue of the charity event Pete was supposed to attend. Trying not to be noticed, I watched him and his parents from afar. During an interview at the venue, he was asked, "Where's your lovely wife today?" Pete turned pale and stammered, "She's not feeling well today." That's when I boldly stepped onto the stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention for a moment? I am the mother of Sophia, the wife of Pete standing over there." As I introduced myself, the attention of the venue turned to me. Pete and his parents, who were at the edge of the venue, looked shocked. "My daughter said she has something she wants to tell everyone, so please look at the screen." As I said this and operated the computer provided, Sophia's face was projected onto the large screen set up at the venue. I had connected the venue with the hotel where Sophia was hiding. Sophia gave a brief greeting and then got to the point. "Everyone, since I became Pete's wife, I've been terribly mistreated at home. They wouldn't let me in the house, saying I was an outsider, and made me live in the garden shed even in the middle of summer. When I displayed the photos I had taken of the inside of the shed when I rescued my daughter on another monitor, I could sense the venue buzzing with shock. I've also recorded the abusive things my husband and in-laws said to me." Sophia said this and played a voice recorder. "Don't act so high and mighty, you outsider. You're not family. You're a slave." As such unbearable audio played, the three of them rushed over, trying to stop the playback. However, the other participants stood in their way and stopped them. "This is all fabricated. Everyone, it's all lies," Pete desperately shouted, but at this point, I played the recording of our earlier phone call. At least she had a roof over her head, right? Anyway, bring that servant back as soon as possible. As these words echoed through the venue, Pete's face grew paler and paler. I took a breath and picked up the microphone. The reason my daughter obeyed them was because her father-in-law threatened that he could take away her mother's job at any time. My daughter endured all this to protect me. Isn't that right, father-in-law? When I glared at Pete's father, he let out a groan. But when I looked into it, you had no connections with the upper management of my company at all. You were lying and tormenting my daughter, weren't you? As I said this with tears in my voice, voices of condemnation rose from the venue. Then Sophia spoke again. "There's more I want everyone to know. This is what I witnessed when I went out shopping on my mother-in-law's orders. As Sophia said this, I displayed a photo on the monitor. It showed Pete entering a hotel with his arm around a woman. Then someone in the venue shouted, "Isn't that the pro golfer Skylar?" When Pete's affair and the fact that his partner was also a professional golfer became known, the venue was in an uproar. Sophia quietly continued, "My husband cheated on me, and my in-laws oppressed me. I can't take it anymore. I'm divorcing my husband and cutting ties with his family." Pete and his parents, criticized and looked at coldly by the charity event participants, shrank back. Then someone stepped forward. It was Mr. Horton, the president of a local big company that was Pete's major sponsor. Pete looked startled, but Mr. Horton said in an angry tone, "Pete, I'm very disappointed. To think you were treating my friend's daughter so terribly." "Ha! Your friend's daughter. He and I were former classmates and good friends. We reunited at your wedding." Pete and his parents turned pale and started shaking. Mr. Horton's face contorted as he declared, "Pete, I'm withdrawing my sponsorship. Mr. Horton, please reconsider." Just after Pete shouted this, voices from the venue started chiming in, "We're withdrawing too." Pete and his parents turned blue and panicked, but they came to the front of the screen and got down on their knees before Sophia. "We're so sorry. Please forgive us. I'll cut ties with Skylar and treasure you from now on." But my daughter just shook her head at their behavior. Then Pete and his parents came to me. "Mother-in-law, please persuade Mr. Horton. If he withdraws his sponsorship, I won't be able to continue as a professional golfer." At that, I shouted, "I will never forgive you for what you did to Sophia. I don't care what happens to you." Then I bowed to the entire venue and left. After that, Sophia and Pete's divorce was finalized. What Pete and his parents had done was quickly spread to the public by the event participants. Pete was reported on, including the affair, and with all his sponsors gone, he couldn't continue as a professional golfer. His affair partner retired too. Sophia demanded $30,000 each from them as compensation for the affair. The in-laws were rumored in the neighborhood as the heartless family that made their daughter-in-law live in a shed, and they had to sell their house and move away. Pete, who became unemployed, and his parents, who had been completely dependent on his income, are now living in an old apartment and working part-time jobs from morning till night. I think it's all their own doing. Meanwhile, Sophia and I are living together now. Sophia has managed to recover and is now working at Mr. Horton's company. I hope to watch over my daughter until she can